Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. It is Kash Patel, former DOD Chief of Staff, all-around smart dude, Trump supporter like I am because he's a smart man. Kash, how are you? Good to see you.
It's good to be back on the program. Thank you.
Get the book, Government Gangsters, The Deep State, The Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy. But I got to tell you, Kash, listen, I'm wavering today. I know you know me pretty well, and I'm pretty steeped in my beliefs. But Robert De Niro says Trump is bad. So I probably, when you watch something that stupid, where the guy is only known for reading lines that somebody else wrote, the guy is only known for playing basically the same character in every movie since 1976. He walks out wearing a mask in downtown Manhattan, and he's got a script that somebody gave him, and he thought that was going to matter. Kash, when you see that, does it look as stupid to you as it does to me?
Yeah, especially though we know that the Biden White House asked him to do it. I
Right.
mean, they literally sent him the talking points. So now not only do you see that the rigged system of justice is going after political opponents in the fashion of Donald Trump in a court of public law and order, supposedly, now they're trying to go after him in the court of public opinion because they know they're losing the legal battle that they rigged against Donald Trump because they're using unconstitutional prosecutions to prosecute political targets. So I guess when you're left with 82, 3, whatever-year-old Robert De Niro ranting on the streets of New York with a mask, you've lost both of them.
No, I would think so. But here's the ridiculousness of it. And you and I are pretty smart. I mean, I consider you much smarter than I, like you tell me all the time. But in watching this, their claim has been this has nothing to do with lawfare, has nothing to do with the election, has nothing to do with Biden-Harris. And De Niro literally walks up to the microphone and says, I decided to join forces with the Biden-Harris campaign. Kash, they admitted it. What are they doing?
Well, it's because we've been proving them wrong so often on the coordination that they just were like, let's not lie about this one. Let's see if Bob De Niro can get this right. I mean, we've proven that the prosecutors from Georgia to New York to D.C. and everywhere else have been meeting with the Biden White House, the Biden lawyers, the Biden legal team, constructing fabrications of legal fiction to prosecute Donald Trump. So it's no surprise they're reaching out to Hollywood. Listen, when they start going to Hollywood to start delivering for the quote unquote American people, you know their administration has failed. And, you know, if they want, I guess they can have Goodfellas try to resurrect it.
I mean, my God, it's fightwithkash.com, and Kash is Kash. It's Kash Patel. Well, one last thing on that. As he's standing there, somebody's off to the side saying they lied under oath, talking about the cops that were behind him, the former Capitol Police behind him. And De Niro goes, because he's not a smart guy, he goes, yeah, they lied under oath. He goes, who? And the guy says, well, the police standing behind you, they're traitors, they're anti-American, they're not patriots. And then De Niro gets all mad and tries to act like a good fella again. Kash, the Capitol Police in that fake January 6th committee, they didn't tell the truth, did they?
No, not just them, many others. And they lying under oath is a federal offense, and they should be investigated for it. And I'm glad we're finally getting to see some of these transcripts and exposing some of their lies. They added to the false disinformation campaign of the insurrection narrative that the Jan 6 committee wanted out there. The Jan 6 committee itself, I believe, committed acts of crime by burying evidence of innocence and destroying evidence that the American people is owed because that evidence spoke the truth and destroyed the Jan 6 committee's narrative about insurrection. It's the same game they ran in Russiagate. It's the same game they ran on the 51 Intel letter, Hunter Biden's laptop, Joe Biden's classified documents case, and now against Donald Trump.
Government Gangsters is the name of the book. His name is Kash Patel. Go and get that right now. The January 6th committee was not formed correctly by the rules of the House. It was an illegal committee. In my opinion, Nancy Pelosi rejected actual conservatives that were nominated for the committee. She said no. They had two so-called Republicans that weren't, in Kinzinger and in Cheney. Why then are Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon, well, Navarro's already in prison. Why would Bannon face prison time too by saying no to a subpoena by a committee that wasn't formed right?
You know, I think you're talking about two Americans who care more about the Constitution than they care about their own personal liberties and freedoms, because if they are the ones that are extinguished, then so many other Americans are going to be extinguished. And they are showing Americans what it takes to fight behind Donald Trump's leadership. And, you know, with Bannon and Navarro, you know, it's two of some of the biggest powerhouses in the MAGA movement, and they've been wrongfully prosecuted, just like Donald Trump. And I think America needs to be shown this rigged system of justice exists for everyone, not just Donald Trump. They're coming after us.
Well, why did executive privilege only work for Obama? I mean, when Fast and Furious happened, they were smuggling guns into Mexico without the Mexican government even knowing about it. They lied about it. Eric Holder gets called into a committee and decides executive privilege. I don't have to tell you anything. Why don't Navarro and Bannon have the same thing? Trump was the president.
No, exactly. It's selective. It's a selective application of the Constitution for the appearance of due process and constitutional form of republic. And we now know that it's not a right-wing conspiracy talking point. The left selects which laws to apply to what facts. And when the law and the facts can't add up to a prosecution, they make up both. And they give themselves exceptions, just like the executive privilege. And it's pretty ironic that the Biden administration just invoked executive privilege to prevent the release of materials from the White House that do damage to the Biden administration. So full circle.
It is fightwithcash.com, fightwithcash.com, Kash Patel. Get his book called Government Gangsters. I know you were in the courtroom last week. As we do this interview, the closing arguments are happening today. We might get some sort of a verdict today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Who knows? But as you were in the courtroom, what was the feeling in the courtroom? It seems as though it is combative, and the judge is supposed to just be an even-handed, unbiased arbiter, but it seems combative. When Robert Costello was sitting there, are you giving me the eye? Are you staring me down? I mean, who does that?
I was there all day for that with President Trump on that day. And I'm a former public defender and national security prosecutor who's tried 60 criminal jury trials to verdict. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen judicial bias where most judges favor the prosecution a little bit. Right. That's kind of expected even in modern day America. But this judge might as well have been a member of the prosecution team for right. Alvin Bragg and on his payroll. I mean, the prosecutors didn't even have to be there. The judge basically brought the prosecution's objections over to the defense counsel and precluded evidence that any other judge would have let in because the law demands it, because Donald Trump's constitutional due process rights demand it. And when Bob Costello blew a hole in the prosecution's case, destroying their prosecution, what does the judge do? He throws everybody out of the courtroom, literally throws them out of the courtroom and threatens Bob Costello with contempt for telling what? The truth.
A guy who's been practicing law in New York for 52 years? Something like that?
52 years, yeah.
It's stunning to me. It's Kash Patel. Kash, as you watch this case unfold, to this moment, and I had Mike Davis on, who I think you know, he's a great lawyer as well, last week. To this moment, the defendant doesn't know what the federal charge that they're connecting this to is. And let me explain those to who are watching and listening what I mean. These are misdemeanor counts that the statute of limitations was over. Alvin Bragg somehow lifted them, raised them to felonies, and is tying them to some federal election something, even though the FEC said there's nothing there. As far as I know, and tell me if I'm wrong, Donald Trump doesn't know what felony or federal charge Alvin Bragg is tying it to yet, does he?
No, and the judge has literally told the jury in instructions that basically Alvin Bragg doesn't really have to prove which specific felony. It can be a bunch of them.
What?
But Alvin Bragg doesn't have the constitutional authority to charge and prosecute federal felonies. That's what federal court is for. And he brought this bootstrap litigation into state court with a rigged system of justice in front of a judge that's also, by the way, hearing the Steve Bannon case right after Donald Trump's. No coincidences there, because they know that this venue is the last venue outside of D.C. to strip Americans of their constitutional rights and rig the system of justice. And this is what's going down in New York. And I hope there's one juror on that jury willing to see through it and say, nope, not today, not on my watch. The law matters more than these people's political venom that they're using to build these cases.
It's an 87% Biden district, though.
Yeah.
Is there you've got two lawyers on the jury. Are you happy about that or not happy about that? I would think lawyers would want to be lawyers, but they're probably biased against Trump.
I mean, having picked scores of juries myself, you never know. You literally never know which person's going to be your guy or gal. And usually 9 times out of 10, the folks that you think are on your side weren't, and the ones that weren't were. Wow. And so you just need one, and that's the advantage of the jury system. But it's so rigged in New York that I think Donald Trump's done a brilliant job showing that jurisdiction matters, and they selected this jurisdiction because they wanted to convict him before he ever set foot in a court of law.
I urge you to get his book. It's called Government Gangsters, and his website is fightwithcash.com. It's Kash Patel. Kash, the engagement trick that people are using today on X is a picture of you saying, this could be Trump's next attorney general. You like it or you don't like it. And they're trying to get people to click on it. So what are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you want to be?
Listen, My mission is to get Donald Trump elected to be president. If he wants to have a conversation afterwards, that's great. But my mission is to put this man, the greatest president of our lifetime, back in office so people aren't prosecuted for their political beliefs, and so that we start putting criminals behind bars, seal the border, go after terrorists, and end the forever wars, and secure the rights of this country once again on top of the world stage. And if people want to ramble off on censorship platforms about who's going to do what,
Right.
I don't care, as long as it spreads the good work of Donald Trump.
It is Kash Patel. Kash, as we're watching the case, many think he might be convicted of the least charge. If he's convicted of anything, how soon can you get an appeal? Where would the appeal be? Will it be an unbiased? Because I know in the state of New York, the Supreme Court is not the highest court. It's actually the Court of Appeals in the state of New York. Does it go directly there? Does it go to the Supreme Court of the United States? Where does this case go? Because obviously this is a railroad job.
Well, the appeal will take years. And that's what the prosecution and judge don't care about. They know that. It'll have to go one level up in the middle court and then to the top of the New York State judicial system. That in and of itself will take years. Then it can go to federal court to apply a federal issue after you've exhausted the state courts. And the prosecutors and the judge know this. If he's convicted, if Donald Trump is convicted, all of these counts are getting reversed, no matter what.
Of course.
But like you pointed out, this is pretty astute. There's 37 felonies. So what might happen is the jury is going to go back there and say, we're just going to convict him of one or two. Let's get out of here. I want to go home. I want to catch my family for the weekend. But they do that, and the judge gets what he wants. Bragg gets what he wants, the label that Donald Trump is a convicted felon while the appeal.
That's really all this is, right? So that Biden and the campaign from now until November can say he's a convicted felon. That's it.
Exactly.
And but every time they brought a case, though, Kash, it helps Trump. If they convict him, he'll double his vote count.
I think you're right. I do believe you're right. And the other consideration is that if they convict him, this judge has the authority, unfortunately, to threaten Donald Trump with actual confinement in a jail cell. And I think that this judge, given his antics and given what his daughter does, who makes tens of millions of dollars from the courtroom, information that's pouring out of there that her father is presiding over. By the way, in New York, that's actually impermissible under the New York judicial statute. But let's put that aside. They want the headline. Judge Merchan, am the one that imprisoned Donald Trump, and Biden wants to use it on the campaign trail. But Americans are too smart to fall for that in the mainstream media anymore. They know the mainstream media lied about this case, this judge, this prosecutor, and most importantly, the mainstream media helped trample Donald Trump's constitutional due process rights, and Americans just aren't having it.
It's a must-read. Government Gangsters. Go and get it. It's Kash Patel, fightwithkash.com. Kash, I grew up learning about civics, and I know a lot about it. I think today's kids aren't learning as much. They need to learn more. But checks and balances always stuck in my brain. From the youngest age, there are checks and balances. How is it that this Judge Merchan can be on this case and not recuse, knowing he's a Biden contributor, knowing that his daughter is making millions, as you said, off of the trials that he's presiding over? Where is the check and balance? Is it because it's so far blue in Manhattan that there is no check and balance?
It's partly because of that, but it's mostly because it's Trump. And these judicial officers, these arbiters of justice, whether it's D.C., Georgia, federal court, or New York, have all basically disrobed themselves to become jackals of injustice so that they can politically prosecute a target that they despise.
Wow.
These judges have actually, who are supposed to be the ones that check themselves, have said, we don't need to be neutral and an arbiter of justice. We just need to get Donald Trump. They suffer from Trump derangement syndrome just as much as the rest of the swamp in the mainstream media. And the fact that we have exposed, thanks to Donald Trump's leadership, their unlawful conduct is showing everyday Americans who they want in power and who they don't.
It is Kash Patel, fightwithkash.com. Let me summarize quickly and tell me if you agree with this. The Fani Willis case is over. She'll be kicked off of it. She might end up being prosecuted. That case will not be anywhere near a courtroom by November. That judge didn't have a backbone. Probably should have gotten her off the case. Jack Smith, the whole course of handling the documents, and they're completely out of sync from where they were supposed to be and where they weren't going to be. And the FBI put a bunch of fake, top secret, and classified stuff on top of things that might have been emails. They took a picture of it and leaked it. That case is done as well, in my opinion. The only case that really looks like it has any weight whatsoever is this one in New York. Will you agree with that?
I think none of them do. I think, and let's throw the DC one in there as well. And let's look at one key theme that all of them have. Every single one of the prosecutors in those cases has lied to a judge, which is a separate criminal offense, and not one of them has been prosecuted for lying to the judge. Judge Cannon in Florida, in the Florida federal case, is conducting a mini trial. Let's see where this goes, because she caught the prosecutors lying about evidence, about how they handled it, about how they moved it, and she asked them why they lied. They weren't able to give a sufficient answer because they got caught lying. So I think people are starting to see that compounding effect, and they're starting to say, wait a second, prosecutors can lie to a judge in state and federal court and get away with it? Not on Donald Trump's watch. He's exposing it, and people are watching. So I think, and also the D.C. case to boot with Chutkin, I think that case is going to crumble under the decision of the Supreme Court on executive privilege, which Donald Trump as president.
Of course. No, he has absolute immunity when it comes to his actual actions doing the job. Can't walk out in the street and shoot somebody, obviously, but in the course of doing his job, can you imagine if there weren't immunity for a president? He couldn't do his job. He just couldn't do it.
No, every president would be in fear of what the subsequent president was going to do for political vendettas. And look, Obama had it, Bush had it, Biden should have it, Donald Trump should have. Everybody. It's selective application of the Constitution for political purposes, which is straight thievery of due process. And Donald Trump is putting due process back on the table, back on the ballot, and I think Americans are going to vote for it.
Fightwithcash.com is the website. Get government gangsters. Should Trump win, he's got to overhaul the DOJ. That's got to be job one. The DOJ is screwed. It's deep state. It's weaponized. It is really bad. Cash, he's much less naive this time going in than he was the first time. It's not his fault. He thought he could walk in and be the CEO. He didn't realize 5,000 people were working against him every day. So now he goes in with his eyes wide open. How can he fix the DOJ?
Yes. Yes, he's not only has he been through it himself as a victim over and over and over again and seen the injustice and the unlawful application of the Constitution, he's seen the actors along the way who have so brazenly publicly shouted from the rooftops that they support the swamp and they support a two-tier system of justice that we now know, because of their own actions, they've named themselves. So we know that these people can't bury themselves in some career role. We also know that Donald Trump has a deep bench of people he can go to, guys like Mike Davis, to help him fill out the Department of Justice and fill the senior leadership positions with people who are going to follow the Constitution. They exist there. They exist for DOD. They exist for the intel community and every other place. And here's another fiction that everyone keeps talking about. Oh, where's he going to get 5,000 people? Why do you need 5,000? Oh, that's been the black book of every administration for the last 50 years.
That's a great question.
Okay, so what's wrong with 500? And that's another DC fiction. They want you to believe it so they can seed their people into this administration. I don't think we need that many, but I think we have the number we need.
It's Kash Patel. Last quick question, Kash, about 30 seconds left. I like Ben Carson for vice president. Yeah. I like you for vice president. I like Tulsi Gabbard is not a bad choice, I think. Is there a short list that we're not aware of, and do you have a favorite?
I don't think there's a list that we're not aware of. Donald Trump does a brilliant job publicizing everyone that could be considered for vice president. So we have a say in it. So we get to vet that candidate with him. And, my advice to him has always been, listen, whoever you pick, you're going to pick the greatest person. We know that. Just don't pick someone who's auditioning to be POTUS like Pence is, so we don't have to get kneecapped by our own administration. And last announcement, Government Gangsters, the movie is coming to a theater near you next month. Bannon and I partnered up.
Let's go.
The movie's coming out in 4 weeks. The media's going to have a meltdown.
I love it. I can't wait to see it. Make sure that I'm a part of that. It's Kash Patel, fightwithcash.com. Get Government Gangsters and see the movie when it comes out. Kash, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great day.
All right, brother. You too. We're back after this. Stay right here.